Nothing like a factory bike. But how are they really different? Let's find out. What's up, Cycle Drag Universe? Where are we today? Take a look behind me. Yes, this is Anaheim Supercross. What a legendary, iconic race. And I'll tell you this, it is unbelievable. It is staggering. Some of the performance tricks, some of the technology, some of the evolution that takes place inside of those motorcycles. So stay with us. We're gonna give you a little behind the scenes tour, and we're also gonna learn a whole lot more about these amazing marvels of engineering you see flying around the Supercross track. It's amazing what these talented riders can do. Stay with us all throughout this video because we are going to find out what is the real difference between a stock motorcycle, a privateer bike, and a full factory bike. Right now you're taking a look at a test session where valuable data is recorded. Guys, you know Angel Stadium is one of the most luxurious and high-end baseball stadiums out there. I always wondered, how did they let them bring in this much dirt? Well, this helps out greatly. This helps preserve the field, and when you're selling the place out and selling $9 beers, that helps too. And what's really gratifying for me is to see anything motorcycle related sell out a baseball stadium in Southern California. That's what's super cool. If you've never been to any of these Anaheim races, put it on your bucket list. It is such a wonderful, tight-packed show. It's one of those situations where you could take somebody who really doesn't like motorcycles and they're still gonna have a good time. And it's at test sessions just like this where many of these factory parts are developed and fine-tuned. Pleased to be joined with a true motorcycle legend, Roger DeCoster. Thanks so much for the time. What we're talking about today is how exactly are these factory machines different than the ones that the average rider can go buy on the dealership floor? How would you answer that question?
Well, in the US here we have a production-based rule, so all the important dimensions of the bike is the same. The frame has to be standard, the swing arm has to be standard, the casting from the engine, cylinder head, cylinder, center cases all have to be production. We are allowed to change gear ratios, clutch, and suspension components. So most of the focus on the difference is in the suspension area.
The advancements in technology are astounding. What these riders can do is beyond belief. And as we wrap up this test session, let's give you a quick look around the pits before we talk to one of the top mechanics out there as to how these factory bikes really differ from stock motorcycles.
Were you there when he did that? Back in the day, he would test it and he'd just put his gear on? He'd single everything and kind of like launch up.
I just love watching what these teams do in the pits too. This is the top echelon of professionalism, not only function, but appearance. I mean, you see them not just cleaning the bikes, but then taking a vacuum and vacuuming around it to maintain that spick and span, awesome factory look.
By the kids, when we get home, we're like, you just get Oliver was.
My pleasure to be joined with a true veteran out here, Frank Latham. He's been in this for 25 years, the mechanic of Marvin Musquin now for a decade, believe it or not. That seems like that happened very quickly.
I've only been with Marvin 10 years.
Well, you guys have found a lot of success together.
Yep.
Here's our topic today. I'm wondering, these motorcycles, they look an awful lot like what's on the factory, what's on the dealership floor, right? But they're very, very different, the factory bikes.
Yeah, we have a lot of special one-off stuff, but the base of the bike is stock. It comes with a stock frame, swing arm, kind of whatever the AMA rolls go with, and you can adjust small parts and what else would you say? Little details to the machine.
I heard somebody say moments ago, and there's a lot of false information out there, so you would know better than anybody. They said the only thing that's stock is the front wheel. Would you agree or disagree?
Actually, both of our wheels aren't stock. They're an aftermarket company. But no, we have a lot of stock parts. KTM makes a really good base motorcycle, but a lot of stuff is catered to each rider.
If you could, from nose to tail, give me a tour of what differs from a stock motorcycle.
Our wheels we get them through Kite. Stock doesn't come with that. They do come with DID rims. We run a DID LTX, and then I don't know what production comes with. And we run a DID chain and Rinthal sprockets. I don't believe that comes on a stock bike. Our Akrapovic exhaust is handmade for us, so it's a little bit different than the one that comes on the factory edition, but yeah, it's whatever power each guy wants.
Now, there's also a lot of sneaky one-off parts, though. They're tailored to each rider, right?
Yeah, in the suspension and in the engine, but all that's kept underneath, so can't really see any of that.
Can't see it, can't say too much about it, but we know anytime you talk about one-off, you're talking about astronomical expense, right?
Yeah, I mean, some expenses are really high, some are just time. Roger makes a lot of parts, and I don't know what you would put a price on his time and design.
All right, how about performance? We know Marvin is an amazing talent. Let's say he goes out there on a stock bike that you make a few tuning adjustments to. How much different is that going to perform?
Marvin's a pretty simple rider. If you get him balanced, he's not too picky, or he wants a motorcycle that's easy to ride and he can manage. Yeah. So I don't know if there's one certain part that makes him. It's a combination of a lot of little things in this sport that make everything better.
Well, you live a fascinating life. I was telling you the story moments ago when I was a young boy, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Steel City would come to town and it would be like a holiday. So I would go down to the mall, I would watch Chad Watts work on Ricky Carmichael's bike, and I thought maybe someday, maybe I want to do this. Well, it turns out I'm not nearly as good of a wrench as you. You put a tool in my hand, you need to just walk away. It's ugly. But what you've done is truly astounding. You've lived this life, not only turning the wrenches, but the miles on the road. How would you describe this to the average person? It's so much more than what they just see on TV.
Yeah, it's a lot more. You're basically away from your home or your family 5 days a week, and you're home for two or three, and you're basically going to work or practicing with your rider on those days also. So it's a grind. I wouldn't change it. I've enjoyed every bit of it, but it's a lot more work than people think. The races are kind of a day off, honestly.
Here on Media Day, Test Day, I see a lot of the mechanics out there taking notes, looking on. What are you looking for on a day like that?
It's actually good because they get to ride the track they're going to race and kind of fine-tune little details, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure and anxiety on a race day where, I don't know, it puts a lot more pressure on them. So I really enjoy the press days to let them have fun and kind of fine-tune things a little bit and find a direction for tomorrow.
I give you a lot of credit too. I see you out there washing, keeping this thing spick and span. You guys are even vacuuming around the bikes. That's just how professional your image is. What is the most difficult part of your job?
The most difficult part, I really enjoy my job, so I don't say there's a difficult part of it. I guess the most difficult part of my job is when your rider doesn't succeed. So you put that much work into it, and sometimes you don't get it right, and they have an off day, or, I mean, that part's probably more disappointing or hard.
It's a competitive environment out here. Factories want to win. Everybody wants to be on top, and I'm sure that brings a lot of pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a good pressure though. Winning races, there's no other feeling. Once you get a win, there's nothing better than that.
Awesome, Frankie. Well, I really appreciate it, and we wish you all the best. We're going to see you out here for another 25 years, hopefully?
Hopefully not, but...
Transition into a different role, maybe?
Yeah, who knows?
Okay.
Yes, getting older and looking forward to the future and spending time with my kids.
Well, you have done an excellent job. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it greatly.
Yep, thank you.
Most of the focus on the difference is in the suspension area. You know, with what they do on Supercross, especially, and with the big jumps and the whoops and all that. The suspension is where all the teams are focused on, and that is stronger and more control, and yeah, that's where we spend our money and focus on.
With all the time, all the research, and all the one-off parts, is it possible to put a value on a factory bike? Is it possible to estimate what it's worth, or is it just too hard to do?
It's hard to do because if you would look at the real value, you have to include the engineers back at the factory that work on this and think about it the whole year, and you know, there is a complete crew that is on salary basically, that you would have to factor that in, and the team spend dozens of millions on making everything ready for the race teams, you know?
Sure. So when you factor that in, it's pretty easy to get to 6 figures pretty quick, huh?
Yeah.
Amazing. I got to ask you this. What's the biggest change you see in the motorcycles as compared to your era, your day?
Well, the suspension for sure, and then the electronics, which allow the engine performance to go way up, and you know, the bikes today, they're so unbelievably good, and the promoters try to put more and more obstacles and make the obstacles more and more difficult, the jumps more and more steep, to try to control the speed of the bike, but the riders and the engineers figured out ways to still go faster. You know?
Well, I must say your team's doing a great job, so continued success. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. He's a legend. Last thing, you ever miss being on the bike? You ever wish that was still you out there?
Yeah, that would be nice, but only in my dreams, you know. You still have a feel of what you should be doing, but to actually do it, it's, you know, there's no way. The young guys, they're so good. You know what they can do on the bike, and using that much power on a tight track like a Supercross track, it's pretty amazing that they can use the power on these bikes. It's impressive.
Very impressive indeed. Well, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. True legend right here. Well, you know the old racing cliche, speed is money. How fast do you want to go? It is so true out here, and it's amazing the dichotomy, how many different levels there are, okay? Not only do we have factory teams, we also have privateer teams. Some of them have big sponsors, so it's not like they're poor. It's not like they're on a super tight budget, but they don't enjoy some of the luxuries of the factory teams. Let's check in and see exactly how their bikes differ from the factory guys. All right, we talked to the factory players. Now, there are many other teams out here in the Supercross world. Many of them are privateers. Jacob Price joins me from St. Louis, Missouri, the Mad Parts Kawasaki team. Now, we were talking about how a factory bike differs from a stock bike. How does a privateer bike like yours differ from a factory bike?
Yeah, so there are some differences here. We're fortunate enough to have MX Tech suspension. They help us out with the blackjack fork and the National Shock. It's as close to factory suspension as you can buy. It's really good stuff, and it's available to consumers as well. But they help us out with setting wise. As far as brakes, they may be running, like the factory bikes may be running fancy billet brakes, but we're just running the stock setup. It works really well.
Okay.
We've got the rotor guard from circuit to cover the rotor, a little bit of protection. Pirelli's got us on the production tire. It's really good. So we're just running Pirelli's front and back on the tires. Ride Engineering is helping us out with some triple clamps to help with the offset.
Okay.
It lets the bikes turn a little bit better. With the stiff suspension, you really need it to turn. So Ride Engineering helps out with that.
Is it safe to say we're going to see a lot more stock parts on your motorcycle than over at the factory pits?
Yeah, definitely. Like we're running with stock hubs and stock wheels. You just have to keep up on the spokes and all that stuff. We make sure they're good, but a little heavier than what those guys are running, but it's round. It does the trick, you know?
Okay. How about internal engine? I know there's not a lot we can talk about, but definitely not stock.
Yeah, so on the 250, it is definitely not stock. Jesse Williams from Williams Motorworks, he went in there and did the whole thing from the top end up. Did a really good job, so it's actually, even though we're, maybe a smaller team, it's competitive with the factory bikes.
We've talked about how the factory bikes are valued into the six figures. How about a privateer's motorcycle? Could you put a value on this bike right here?
Yeah, if you roll a stock bike off the showroom floor, just about everything we run, someone could go out and buy. So you add up tires, suspension, triple clamps. I'd say we'd probably be 15 to 20,
so that's
in that range.
That's not so bad.
It's not so bad, and for a really competitive bike.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, the fact that you guys, David out here competing with Goliath, these $100,000 motorcycles, and you are not that far back in terms of lap time, it's pretty astounding, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And on our 450s, we're actually running pump fuel. And one of our guys, Joe on Cross, I'm sure if you've watched any of the LCQs, he's right up there in the starts. And even in the heat races, he's pulled some starts on Ferrandis and some of the top guys,
Yes, he is. What do you think your biggest disadvantage is compared to the guys with factory support?
Probably the biggest disadvantage would be testing time, since we do have to drive around, and we do have some really good people in our corner. Like I said, MX Tech suspension, Jesse Williams with motors. It's just testing with that kind of stuff. They have multiple people dedicated just to that. So we have the parts, we just need the time to put in.
Well, thank you so much for the time. We wish you good luck this year. Power to the privateers. They got a shot too.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Well, there you go, guys. I want to thank the teams for giving us some inside access, some inside info. I hope you found that informative. If you know anything else, if you have anything to add to this, as always, leave it down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for growing this outlet. Please be a friend, tell a friend. If you like that video, here's another one for you. Subscribe right in the middle. From Anaheim, Cycle Drag rolls on.